Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel many times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, a good few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round. They're a very well established and very well respected name here in Hong Kong. Now, the beer we're going to have a look at from them today is one of their latest releases as of the time of filming, which is November 2025. It's a style that I've had from this brewery many times before, one that I know they can do very well, but this one is a wee bit different to the others we've had in this style category from them previously, and it is supposed to be really quite nice. So, needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to stick to Hong Kong. We're going to go to the Kowloon side though, and we're going to go round to a little place called Kwun, Tong, and that means we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Hong Kong Beer Company. So this particular beer is called White Pearl. It comes in at 4.9% ABV, and this one is a New Zealand hopped Pilsner. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting. This beer was only released maybe about 2 weeks before I'm filming the review, and I was very tempted when I was at their little hole in the wall to try one of these, but I wanted my video to be the first taste that I have of this beer, because I think it's just a little bit more authentic and things. But if it's good, I will certainly be drinking more of this one, I'm sure, because I do like the regular Pilsner, the purple labelled one. From what I understand, a couple of years ago they did have another beer that was called White Pearl, and that one was like a Belgian wit, 5%er actually, and that one had a kind of sort of sky blue type label on it if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they've resurrected the White Pearl name as a New Zealand Pilsner this time, so it should be quite interesting. But yeah, as I say, we know that Hong Kong Beer Company can do Pilsners very well. I'm really curious to see what this new one has in store for us. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Hong Kong Beer Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the very near future, because I've got 4 or 5 cans from these guys that I need to review quite soon. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist, along with a number of other things. That's been added to quite regularly, of course, since I am based here in Hong Kong, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Hong Kong Beer Company once again. So the history of Hong Kong Beer Company goes back to 1995, when the company was originally established as South China Brewing Company. So the man behind this first iteration of the company, if we can call it that, was David Haynes, who's originally from Colorado and is a clinical psychologist by trade. But he was also a big beer enthusiast, which is understandable when you consider what state he's from. Colorado, as we know, is an awesome, awesome beer state. But his wife worked as a China analyst at one of the big financial firms, and she encouraged him to go for it and found his own company. So he went to the US to visit different microbreweries and do some fact finding, and around this time David encountered Peter Bordeaux, who was the president of Sazerac, quite a major American beverage distributor. And after asking a lot of questions, Peter actually agreed to help David finance the startup, and away they went. So it took them about a year to navigate the Hong Kong bureaucracy, but they managed to get the legal right to brew beer, and they opened the brewery in the Vita Tower in Aberdeen on the south of Hong Kong Island. They released their first beer, which was called Crooked Island Ale, and this beer kind of spread by word of mouth to the different pubs across Hong Kong. But the brewery had a few years of success, but then it started to kind of sputter and eventually became a contract brewery brewing beers for other breweries. But the company was then acquired by Harmony Assets in 2003, and it was at this point that the name was changed to Hong Kong Beer Company. Harmony distributed their beers through their bar chain El Grande, but production was very small. It was only around 120,000 litres of beer per year by 2009, but the quality of the beer apparently continued to stutter, and they eventually ended up having their beers contract brewed elsewhere. Later on though, in 2013, the company was purchased by Devon Otto Kimball and Daniel Flores, who are the team behind Brewworks Brewery and Restaurant down in Singapore. So they stayed involved with the company in that form up until about 2020, but under their guidance the brewery was completely revamped from the ground up. They brought in brewmaster Simon Pesh, who previously worked for Pyramid Brewery in Berkeley in California, and he stayed with them until 2018. They relocated the brewery to Chai Wan on the eastern part of Hong Kong Island, and there they began operating a 20 US barrel brew kit, which is around 3,200 litres per brew. This one was from JNVW Systems, and today they're producing in the region of 600,000 litres of beer per year. There was another restructure or change of ownership in 2020, and the current brew team that's there now is headed by Philip Rankmore and Matt Bradley under the guidance of James Waters. But Philip is from Sydney, and he originally studied chemical engineering and then later gained his brewing diploma from the Institute of Brewing and Distilling before going to work in Korea for Goose Island and then Budnamu, and he also spent some time teaching brewers in Korea and Hong Kong as well. But in 2024 they relocated production again to Kwun Tong in East Kowloon, and they've been working to build up this facility over the last few months, and these days they've got a sort of hole in the wall at the back of the brewery where you can go and buy the cans, and that's where I got this one. You can sit there of course and have a beer and have a couple of beers for a few hours. It's usually open from 4 to 6 Monday to Friday, so go down and check it out. But as of November 2025, these guys have produced about 115 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Hong Kong Beer Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages, of course, to learn a little bit more about all the different beers they've done too. So yeah, that's it for your history section of this video. Let's go on and actually have a wee look at the beer itself. So this one, as you can see, has the kind of typical Hong Kong Beer Company artwork on it, or the core range Hong Kong Beer Company artwork, I guess we could say. The White Pearl, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but a lot of the Hong Kong Beer Company beer names are from like local landmarks and things like that, so I'm guessing the White Pearl is one of those as well. But yeah, really nicely presented, this one. The original White Pearl, as I said, was a Belgian wit beer at like 5% ABV, and it had a sort of blue label. But yeah, plain silver top on the can with this one. It does tell you a wee bit on the side here as well. It says this double dry hop modern pils combines all the crisp refreshing qualities of traditional pilsners with a striking New Zealand hop character, featuring notes of passion fruit, lemon lime and Sauvignon Blanc grape. So I'm guessing maybe it's a little bit of, I'm guessing Nelson Sauvin. If it's lemon and lime, it's probably going to be Motueka, and you know, if you've got a bit of passion fruit there, maybe Rakal or something like that. Yeah, something, I guess that'll probably be the lineup that's in this one. But yeah, 4.9% Pilsner this one, New Zealand hops in it. I love Pilsners, I love New Zealand hops. I'm sure this one will be pretty nice. So let's get it out into the glass then and see what this one is all about. Let's see. Oh, it got a little bit excited, but it is okay. There we go. So let's see how we do with this one. Give it a wee bit more of an aggressive pour so we get a nice head on it. And there you go. So, there we are. Before the head disappears on this one, we can say that it poured with about a half finger of quite a bumpy and bubbly white head there. That's fading away to just be a nice kind of thin foamy layer, of course, but you've got that ring just around the edge of the glass there, but it looks pretty nice, I have to say. And this one, of course, crystal clear, lovely kind of pale golden straw colour actually, and a fair little bit of visible carbonation. This one, you can see the bubbles just going up toward the surface of the beer there, but yeah, the head has completely disappeared from this one quite quickly. But as long as the beer tastes good, who cares about that, to be honest with you? But yeah, the head is just leaving a nice kind of ring around the edge of the glass there. And as I said, you can see this one is crystal clear. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the different beers in the kind of lager family. So yeah, a little bit about the Pilsner style, of course. This style originated in the Czech city of Pilsen, which at the time was under Austro-Hungarian rule. So Pilsner tends to be the German name for beers that come from that city. Pilsen is what the Czechs would call them. And of course the style, it was developed back in about the 1840s or 1860s, and it was actually a Bavarian brewer who developed this style, and that one is Pilsner Urquell Plzeňský Prázdroj, as it's known across the world. So yeah, the Pilsner style is part of the lager family. Lagers, of course, are defined as beers that use bottom fermenting yeasts, ferment at lower temperature, and yeah, you've got lots of beers in that family. You've got, Pilsner, Helles, Dunkel, Schwarzbier, Bock, Doppelbock, and of course the Vienna Lager, Svetli, Lakeside Cherny, Tmave, all of these kind of things. So yeah, the lager beers are the lighter bodied ones that ferment at lower temperatures using bottom fermenting yeast, and the Pilsner is a member of that family. So I think we've covered everything we need to technically about these beers. The only other thing I would add about Pilsners is that, yeah, the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more kind of spicy and floral because of the Czech Žatec hops, which have, I think, slightly higher alpha acid, whereas the German ones tend to be a little bit kind of more dry and crisp from the malt, if that makes sense. But the German hops are just that little bit smoother, the Hallertau and the Tettnang Mittelfrühs, of course. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about that. Let's go on and actually have a look at the aroma of this beer then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. And yeah, straight away you can smell that big oiliness of the Nelson Sauvin in there. Oh, yeah. This one actually, just smelling this beer, it actually reminds me of the Long White Cloud, which is it's a New Zealand IPA from a Tempest Brewing Company back home in Scotland. My favourite Scottish brewery, potentially. The aroma that comes off of this really reminds me of that. And I have to admit, if I was smelling this beer blind without knowing what it was, I actually think I might struggle to tell you that this one was a Pilsner. It actually comes across as more like a kind of pale ale or a straight up IPA. It doesn't smell too dissimilar from the Big Wave Bay or the Dragon's Back, actually. But that, I think, is just because it's the high oil content of these New Zealand hops. It's the hops that jump out of this one at you right away. It's quite difficult actually to detect the Pilsner side of the aroma unless you sugar it up. So that's something to keep in mind with this. We'll need to see. But yeah, definitely aroma-wise, I don't think I would pick out that this is a Pilsner. I would think this is a pale ale or an IPA, a West Coast IPA. But the aroma, I have to say, I do really like it. The New Zealand oily hops jump out at you straight away with this one. Yeah, the Nelson Sauvin is all the way in there. But yeah, definitely Nelson Sauvin, 16% alpha acid, white green grapey character, New Zealand hop, the classic New Zealand hop, I would say. But yeah, anyway, let's see. I can get a little bit of the malty backbone out of this beer, but not overly much, as I say. So the malty side of this beer for me, it's yeah, I would say the malty side of this beer, you get a little bit of like a fresh white bready bread crust in there. Yeah, so we touch of fresh white bready bread crust. It has you do get a little touch of woodiness, wee bit of white bread. You can smell a wee bit of the Pilsner malty crispness in the back of the nose. It's not quite as crisp and dry as you'll get from some of the German or the Czech Pilsners, of course. And from what I remember, Philip likes to use Australian malt in his beers, so maybe that's why it comes across as a wee bit different. And it's just, yeah, Australian malt just isn't quite as dry and crisp as the European malt, in all honesty. But yeah, with this one, there's lovely fluffy fresh white bread in there. You do get a wee bit of that oily kind of honey type character from the Pilsner malt as well. Definitely some McVitie's digestive biscuity characters too. Yeah, even if I change nostril, yeah, pretty much all the same. There's a little bit of a sweeter kind of brown bready character coming out of the beer as well, the more that I smell of it. But yeah, the malty character, it is a little bit harder to detect just because of how oily and hoppy this beer is. If it's double dry hopped and we're drinking this one pretty fresh, it kind of makes sense, to be honest. Yeah, really interesting stuff in that sense. Now, the yeasty side of the beer, at the back of the nose, for me, yeah, the yeasty side of the beer for me, at the back of the nose, it's got a mix of like white bread and brown bread, I would say. Yeah, yeasty side of this beer for me, like a mix of white bread and brown bread, and it's quite sweet again. And that's the thing, I do wonder if the kind of oily characters from the hops in here are just making everything seem that little bit more oily and sweet and kind of brown sugary. Yeah, but white bread, brown bread, and a wee bit of crispness on the yeasty side of the beer. I think we're going to get more out of the malty and yeasty side of this beer in the actual flavour, definitely, than the aroma. I think the hops are just dominating the aroma in this one. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but it's just not quite what you're used to, or what I'm used to at least, with the Pilsners, because generally speaking, when I review these beers, what I want is authenticity. I want these beers to taste like they would in Germany or the Czech Republic. This one, of course, is different because it's more like along the lines of these West Coast Pilsners that are going out, you know, the kind of Californian Pilsners. So yeah, these ones are a different story, if you like. So I can't sort of rate this beer in the same way that I would a traditional German Pilsner. We have to keep that in mind. But yeah, I think that's all we can really say about the malty and yeasty side of things just now. For the green component then, and typically speaking, a Pilsner should have maybe about 30 or 40 IBUs. But some of them can go as low as 20, it just really depends. But yeah, how would you say, the green component of this one, there's a little touch of earthiness to it, but for the most part, it's very, very bright and very floral. You've got some lovely zesty grassiness in there, and I think the grassiness in this was mostly coming from what I suspect to be Motueka. So yeah, lovely kind of floral aromaticity, oily grassy character from what I suspect is Motueka. And then yeah, there's a nice I think just a wee bit of woodiness as well. Slight earthiness, slight woodiness, big floral notes, and a big oily grassy character. I think that's what we can say about the green component in this one. Now, on the fruity side of things, yeah, lots of white, green, grapey, gooseberry notes out of this one. Nelson Sauvin all the way. You can definitely get that little bit more of a zesty, kind of lemony, limey character, and I'm pretty sure, just going from by the way it's coming out, there's something familiar about it. I want to see Motueka. And there is a wee touch of like apricot and passion fruit and stuff behind there. Maybe that's most likely, is it Racal maybe? Something like that. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is quite interesting. As I said earlier, if I was given this one blind, I would probably think that it's a pale ale or something like that. A West Coast pale ale, because it's so oily and so kind of fruity leaning. But yeah, aroma wise, I really like this one, but as I say, wouldn't be able to pick out that this is a Pilsner, I don't think, because the hops just overpower the malty side of things quite a bit in the aroma. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and stuff like that. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. This is the White Pearl, a double dry hopped modern Pilsner, they're calling it, a New Zealand hop Pilsner from Hong Kong Beer Company in Kwun, Tong, Kowloon here in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, and cheers. Oh yeah. I'm going to say straight away, that is really pretty nice. The flavour of this one is pretty much what I expected based on the aroma. this type of beer really suits the kind of things you're going to get from Hong Kong Beer Company. The beers are always very kind of, the non-hazy ones at least I should say, the non-hazy ones are always very slightly oily and slick, very clean, and they've just got that nice kind of crispness to them, so it really is nice. But yeah, the way everything goes together in this one, I think, is very, very nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like that. I do like that with this one. As I say, I don't drink too many of these West Coast type Pilsners, if we can call it that, or New Zealand Pilsners, but I think it's really quite nice. This is a style that could grow on me. As I say, I think I would struggle a wee bit to determine the difference, the flavour profile difference between this and just like a West Coast Pale Ale. But yeah, you will, if you like your West Coast Pales, if you like the Dragon's Back from Hong Kong Beer Company, you will enjoy this one. But if you do want a more traditional sort of German type Pilsner, go for the purple can. Yeah, do that. Yeah, so let's break this one down then, and let's break this one down and just describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth. So yeah, middle third of your palate then with this beer. The backbone of this one, you get a lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a little touch of woodiness out of it. I always get a wee bit of woodiness, of course. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness. Then you've got a layer of kind of Jacob's cream cracker in this one, which is nice. And the next layer up, you've got a fluffier, fresh white bready character coming out of this beer. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice. Yeah, so the fluffy, fresh, white bready character in there is really nice. Then above that, you can feel, how would you say, yeah, you've got the fluffy, fresh, white bready character, but the more I go into the aftertaste with this, I'm wondering if between the cracker and the white bread, you do have a wee bit more of a dense, maybe you've got a little bit of a more dense brown bready kind of character in there. So yeah, wee bit of a dense brown bready. Yeah, wee bit of a dense brown bready character in there. A fluffier white bready character just sitting on top of that. And yeah, then you get, there's a big oily circle kind of in the middle of the palate there. And that's where you get all your kind of brown sugary notes. So yeah, I think, yeah, the brown bready layer, the fluffier white bready layer, then you've got a nice kind of that sort of oval, circly sort of shape sitting in the middle of your palate, and underneath you get a slightly toasty, there's a very slightly toasty brown sugary character. In the dead centre of your palate, you've got that more, you do have a bit more of a sweet caramelly note, and that's the boozy part of the beer coming out, of course. Then as you move further out from it, it starts to become a little bit more McVitie's digestive biscuit, and of course you've got that slightly toasty brown sugary layer just just kind of sitting underneath that. So yeah, that's your middle third of your palate in this beer. The way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, I think that, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. I don't think we need to say anything more about the middle third of your palate. And the only other thing I would add is that further back, of course, you start to get the more crisp elements of the Pilsner malt. So let's go to that back third of your palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. And of course, between the middle and back third of your palate, you're going to get very similar flavours to to the beer, but just at different, intensities, if you like. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get all of these, you get all of these kind of flavours building up. So you've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the fluffier white bread in the middle, then you start to get the more crisp Pilsner malt, dry Pilsner malty character coming out of this one at the very top there. But yeah, the back, at the back of your palate, the first layer down, you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there, the Jacob's cream cracker, then you've got a fluffier, lighter brown bready layer, then above that, fluffier white bready sort of layer coming out of this one. Then on top of everything else, you've got the kind of crisp Pilsner malty character, and above all of that, there's the kind of yeasty side of things coming out. So let's have a wee look at that yeasty part of the beer. So yeah, the yeasty side of this one for me, it's at its core, it's got a little bit more of a kind of sweeter brown bready character. As you move further out from that, it's a bit of a fluffier white bready note, and then it's there's a more crisp Pilsner malty character. There's a more kind of crisp Pilsner malty character coming out of it as well. So it's like a very, there's that brown bready core, fluffier white bread, wee bit of Pilsner malt, and then it's surrounded by a wee bit of a kind of white bready bread crust. And definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I think with that we've covered the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Let's go to the hoppy and fruity side of things with this one then. Pardon me. So yeah, back corners of your palate, there's a little bit of there's a slight touch of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, there's a little touch of woodiness. As you come further forward from that, you can feel a little touch of pine resin in there. It's probably your Nelson Sauvignon that's doing that. But then as you move further and further forward, you get more floral aromaticity. Then round the front curve of your tongue, it's just a little bit lighter, more grassy and kind of zesty. But the green component on this one is quite oily, and that's probably down to just the high oil content of these lovely New Zealand hops that are in here. But yeah, let's look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. There's the kind of brown bread in the base, the fluffier white bread in the middle, then a wee touch of there's a wee tiny touch of that Pilsner malty Christmas there on top. But yeah, the base of the front third of your palate, white bready bread crust, Jacob's cream cracker, brown bread, white bread, and then maybe just a very slight little bit of biscuit creeping forward. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, the oily side of this beer, the fruity side of things, the fruity side of this thing is really quite nice. In that sense, it has, how do you say, in that sense, it's got a little bit of, how would we say, further back you do get a wee bit of this kind of oily passion fruity note, and as you reach the middle of the front third of your palate, there's like a soft apricot-y character in there. I do wonder, is it maybe Racal or something like that? Feels a bit familiar, but yeah, the passion fruity notes in this one do, and sort of apricot notes, the tropical fruit note, if we can put it like that, that does take a bit of a backseat to the other things that are going on in this beer. Because as soon as you go into the front half of that front third of your palate, you've got the big oily white green grapey sort of thing there. That's the base from the Nelson Sauvignon, and then further forward, just as you reach the kind of front tip of your palate, it's got a nice kind of zesty, limey sort of character coming out of it, which I have to admit I really do quite like. So the way that goes together in this one, I think, is really quite nice. The fruity side of this one is very much Nelson Sauvignon dominating, just with a little bit of tropical character behind it, and a wee bit of that lemon limey zest at the front from what I heavily suspect is Motueka. So yeah, the fruity character in this one is pretty nice, and it's just really oily. So for me, yeah, this one's quite interesting because the New Zealand hops are making this beer very, very oily and very smooth and almost slick, so almost to the point where it drinks like a pale ale. So I think at this point, now that we've covered the flavour, we should round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, this beer, for me, it's kind of a top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth in this one. It's got a lovely kind of oily, yeah, it's got a lovely sort of oily slickness to it, I would say. So yeah, lovely kind of oily slickness, and that is what really makes it drink like a pale ale in a sense. In terms of the IBUs in this one, I think this is probably like 25-ish, something like that. So it has got a wee bit of bitterness that lingers there into the aftertaste. The malt base is a wee bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, and it's got a wee slight oily sweetness sitting on top of that. Then yeah, the big oily fruity character that comes out of this one, I think, is quite interesting too. So yeah, all in all, it's a really interesting beer, this one. As I say, I haven't drank too many of these New Zealand Pilsners. It'd be cool to go down there again, of course, explore a wee bit, visit the breweries, and actually drink some of these at source. But yeah, this is definitely a kind of subcategory that I do need to explore a little bit more. But for me, this one comes off very much like a pale ale in a lot of ways, mostly because of the mouthfeel. But I like it, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So maybe I've got to try this one a few times and just kind of get used to what the beer is offering. But of course, these guys do the One Mole Cold IP as well, which isn't a million miles away from this. So that's worth thinking about. But yeah, another interesting beer from these guys, one that's made me think a little bit. And again, that is what you want after 4,400 odd reviews. So I think we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the White Pearl, a New Zealand Pilsner at 4.9% ABV from Hong Kong Beer Company in Kwun, Tong, Kowloon here in Hong Kong. Give it a go for yourself and see what you think. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Hong Kong Beer Company as well, and we will be returning to these guys again in a couple of videos time for another Pilsner actually, and we've got a few other things to look at from them too. But until then, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys very, very shortly. Ciao just now.